and welcome to another exciting edition of Best MTG Decks Ever. I am your host, Joseph, and I am back. I have been taking a hiatus to train in my mother's basement in the art of the blade. I have an upcoming sword fighting tournament in Japan. It is to the death. I have, it is a 16-man tournament, each one killing until we find out who the most alpha sword master is, and me being a sword master, it will be me. What just happened right there? So to the untrained eye, I actually pulled my sword out, did a slice, and then put it back in so fast that you probably didn't even see it. It takes months of training in your mother's basement to be able to train the eyes to see such fast movement. But anyway, on to Magic. So I want to give a quick update before we get into the Yasharn video, but basically, sell or buy list everything. Sell or buy list everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything except Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and Four Horsemen. And even with those, the Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Four Horsemen, prefer Alpha over everything, next Beta, next Unlimited, then Four Horsemen. You basically just want to get everything into Alpha. Sell or buy list everything into Alpha. Because money going down. WotC printers go burr, making the prices of cards go down. It is not worth holding any card that is not Alpha. So sell or buy list everything. And then in place of that, proxy. Just proxy everything. You need a Force of Will? Just buy a proxy. A proxy Force of Will costs $1. Or you could buy a Force of Will for like $80 and they're just going to keep printing it over and over and over and over again. There's going to be a brand new shiny one that comes out. It's going to be an oil slick reverse, no Quincy's double oil slick card that's going to come out every single year, and the price of your Force of Will is just going to keep dropping. So sell or buy list, if you own a Force of Will, sell it, buy list it, convert it into Alpha cards, proxy it, and then this will turn into this. This is Alpha. And this one going down that sucks, that you don't want to be in, are every other card. Okay? Anyway, so let's take a look at like the price of Mana Drain. So Mana Drain is a card that if you have it now, buy list it. Just get rid of it. It was like above 60, and now it's all the way down to like $40. It's lost like a third of its value, and it's going to keep going down because they're going to keep printing it because wizards and printers go burr and money thing drops. So here's another one that we can look at. Force of Will. The original Alliance copy was up in near the 150s, and now it's down to 95. Another third of its 30% just dropped off, and it's going to keep going down because they're going to keep on printing it. There's no reason for them to not print it. People just go crazy over it, so just sell the stuff, turn it into Alpha. Proxy. Just proxy everything. I'm so on board with proxies now that I will proxy an entire deck. Like 100 card proxy. I order it. They're $1 a piece. So it cost me $100 to make a deck. And then like that's just what you do. It's just so much cheaper. Now, after that, let's get into the Yasharn deck. Okay? So this is my old Yasharn deck, which I called Slapped Ham. Because he's a pig. He's an elemental boar. And the deck that I have is creature heavy. This is CEDH. It's competitive. It's creature heavy. I run 48 creatures inside this thing. Um, 2 planewalkers, 7 instants, 5 artifacts, 6 enchantments, but most everything is is a is a creature. The goal of the deck is to stacks out your opponents into several win cons. So let's go look at the primer that I've written up for this deck. And we'll go into preview mode. So, some of our win cons are Kamal Fist of Krosa plus Elish Norn, and then you can start sniping opponents' lands 1 green at a time. Okay? So, essentially, like, the way that you would want to do this is you would probably want to have, one of these out there, and you want to be able to drop this. So you're going to need some mana. So essentially, like, what you're going to want to do is probably, you want to get Gaia's Cradle. Add a green mana to your mana pool for each creature you control, and this is going to allow you to combo with this. But it's pretty it's a pretty nasty combo, and it can kind of like, you can kind of politic with it a little bit, because essentially it allows you to snipe people's lands 1 green mana at a time. Way that it works is you have Kamal and you have Elish on the board. For every green mana you spend, target land becomes a 1/1 creature until end of turn. It's still a land. With Elish Norn, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. So when you spend 1 green, it turns one of your opponent's lands into a 1/1 creature, which then gets -2/-2. Then it dies. So if you can get this out there and you've got an untapped Gaia's Cradle and you've got, like 5 creatures, boom, you get Elish out there or Kamal, and then tap Gaia's Cradle with the 5 green mana, and you can destroy 5 lands. Depending on the setup and, how you want to play it, it can be devastating. That's kind of like a soft win con, though. Next up, we've got Walking Ballista and Heliod Suncrowned. And why is this thing loading? Okay. So basically, you've got Heliod out there, Walking Ballista. It's got to come out. You got to spend 4 mana on it, so it's got the 2, and then you just combo off and do infinite damage to your opponents, and then you win. Another win con is Finale of Devastation with 10x. So basically, you can search your library or graveyard for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less. You might be going to get Craterhoof, but even if you've already made a Craterhoof attempt at a win and then he's gone, you can still get something else. Appropriate creatures are Elish, Kamal, Archon of Valor's Reach. Archon of Valor's Reach is probably preferred to Kamal or Elish, because you can choose instants and then it'll prevent anybody from trying to interact with it if they let the finale go off. I mean, I guess if they have instants, they're probably gonna, that can stop finale. They would do it unless it's some sort of creature removal. You could also Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. That's a good card for protecting your board against that Cyclone, that whatever. Can't remember the name of it, but it's something Cyclone, and Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift. I knew if I actually went to the search bar, I would suddenly remember it. And then, of course, the easiest win con out of all of them is Craterhoof Behemoth. You want to have like 5 creatures on the board, 5 or 6 creatures, get out there, cast Craterhoof, and then just start taking out people. I thought I used to have a deeper primer than this. I thought it had more stuff to it, but I guess it really doesn't need it, because with this deck, it's pretty straightforward. You're just casting creatures and then killing. So
Yeah, Kamal Fist of Krosa can be used to counter board wipes by punishing the offending player, turning their lands into creatures. So it's like if you have Kamal on the board and someone wants to do some sort of a board wipe, you can like threaten them. You can say, if you do this board wipe, I'm going to turn all of your lands into 1/1 creatures, and I'm going to wipe out your lands. And you can kind of like, threaten that uh, against them. Sereth the Viper's Fang and Yasharn is 7 mana and allows 2 Yasharn activations per turn. So Sereth has 1 colorless tap to untap another target creature or land you control. So you pay 3 with Yasharn, go get your 1 cost creature, tap 1, so now you're up to 4 mana. Tap Sereth, untap Yasharn, tap another 3, so that's 7 mana spent per turn, and then you can tap Yasharn again and go get your 2 cost. And then next turn you're getting a 3 cost and a 4 cost, and then, like on the third turn, you're getting a 4 and a 5. And it's just pretty much like you've snowballed. Aerial Extortionist is a card that I like. It allows you to put your opponents behind by exiling important pieces. You would want to do it with pieces that have casting costs. You can also circumvent opposing stacks, because basically when Aerial Extortionist comes into play, you can exile a target permanent, and then that person can cast it from exile if they so choose. You can also use it to get back things that are stolen from you. So if someone drakes your commander, you Aerial Extortion and exile your commander, and then you can cast them back on your side, which works. Aerial Extortionist also combos with a new card that I love, Soulless Jailer. Permanent cards and graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exile. So with Soulless Jailer on the board, when you're using Aerial Extortionist, you could prevent enchantments or artifacts from being recast from exile. Vivien Champion of the Wild allows us to play through Rule of Law effects. This is a card that is teched specifically for a meta that I'm in, because someone runs stuff that this card works against. They have very commander-centric decks, and their commanders have powers that are 4 or greater. So with Chop Down, I can destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. It's an instant. And then they also in my meta, there are a lot of attack heavy metas where attacking matters. So then I can put Giant Killer out there, and I can tap target creature at the beginning of a turn to prevent it from attacking, which works well. Soulless Jailer, just told you about it. It's awesome. I removed Peacekeeper. Again, like I told you, I was in an attack heavy meta. So the way that this one works is, it's interesting because you have to pay mana during your upkeep or you bury it, and you're kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks. But it's kind of good, because what you can do is you can throw Peacekeeper out there, build your board, stacks it up, get into position, and then at the beginning of your turn, you just let Peacekeeper get buried, and then you're the first one that gets to attack. But I believe I took out Peacekeeper. Yes, I did. I'll need to update that primer. Brooding Saurian is also, like, in my meta, there's a lot of theft. So at the beginning of each end step, each player gains control of all non-token permanents he or she owns. So just plop it out there. And I think I am still running that. Yeah, Brooding Saurian. Yeah, I just run in a meta where a lot of my opponents are stealing stuff. So with Brooding Saurian, it just helps me get everything back that gets stolen from me. Some other interesting cards which you might want to switch out. So like I said, a lot of my opponents are running decks that are very commander-centric. So Song of the Dryads kind of like takes their commander out of the game completely, and they can't just recast it. So that's why that is there. Deafening Silence, Rest in Peace, Survival of the Fittest, Sylvan Library, and Rule of Law. These are all just standard enchantments that you're going to be running in stacks deck. Chrome Mox, Jewel Lotus, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring. So the interesting thing about this deck is that I'm not running Mox Diamond because we're running really low on lands. We only run 27 lands, and because of that, and because of the commander we have, so when Yasharn enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest and a basic playing card. And what this means is that we use our creature ramp and some of these artifacts, but we want to keep our lands because we don't have a lot of lands in our opening hand, and we don't want to get rid of it to with a Mox Diamond. The strategy we want to do is we want to cast Yasharn as fast as possible to then take a forest or a plains and put it in our hand, and then that's how we catch up on lands. For instance, we've got Crop Rotation, Enlightened Tutor, Swords to Plowshares, just removal, Worldly Tutor, Eladamri's Call, Fateful Absence. Again, this card is kind of teched specifically because I'm in a meta that the commanders are very important, so these help me get rid of it. If you're not in a meta like that, you might want to switch these out for something different, something that either protects your pieces if there's a lot of removal, or just straight more creatures. Let's see what else. I would say, so Crop Rotation, you're almost always going to get Gaia's Cradle. Let's look at some of these creatures we got and point out anything that stands out. So these are all just your standard ramping stuff. Uvenwald Tracker is kind of cool because you can use it to start sniping your enemy's creatures. If you're not in a creature heavy meta, you might want to switch this out with something else. Another awesome card is Weathered Wayfarer. You almost always want to use this to get Gaia's Cradle. However, there are a few lands in here that are very specific to some certain situations. So Blast Zone, you can use it as removal for specific things like board wipes. Not Ancient Ziggurat. Where is some of these other tech lands that we've got? Homeward Path. Each player gains control of all creatures he or she owns. Again, I'm in a theft-heavy meta often, so Homeward Path is something I can get with Weathered Wayfarer and then tap it and get my creatures back if they're stolen from me. And then Winding Canyons. Here's another one that you might want to get. So say we've locked out the game with Rule of Law effects. We can use Weathered Wayfarer to get Winding Canyon. And Winding Canyon has 2 colorless mana, tap. Until the end of turn, you may play creature cards whenever you could play instants, which is basically gives all your creatures flash. So if you got your Rule of Law effects on the board, you get Winding Canyons out, you can cast creatures on your opponent's turns to circumvent your own stack's effects. It's called Breaking Parity. Let's see what we've got here. Winds of Abandon. So Winds of Abandon works amazing because especially if like you're in a meta where you have to attack and your opponents might have some creatures on the board. If there's any sort of creature heavy meta, you want this. And you want it for the overload effect. So it says 4 colorless, 2 white. You may cast this spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. So exile each creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches their library for a basic land card. Those players put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle the libraries. So in CEDH, there's not a lot of basic land cards. This wipes out asymmetrically all of your opponent's creatures, and then you can just start attacking them with impunity. This can also be used in tandem with some other cards here to really help you start to pull ahead. So if you have Toski out, you Winds of Abandon, and then with Toski, if you have like 3 or 4 creatures on the board, all their creatures are gone. Boom, Toski, you attack, you draw 4 cards, and then you just start like really going to town. Orin Frostfang also allows you to draw from things like that. Let's see if there's anything else on these creatures that I wanted to point out. Fauna Shaman's really good mid to late game when you start drawing some of those small creatures. Like if you draw Birds of Paradise on turn 6, you might want to Fauna Shaman it for something like a Stax piece or a bigger creature that you can cast, or a win con. You can get Heliod, you can get Ballista, or whatever you want. Here's one that I like that I don't see in a lot of Stax decks, but I do run it in mine. Kataki War's Wage. It's just a 2 cost, and it in artifact heavy metas, this really slows people down. Everyone knows that. Scavenging Ooze. Da da da. Okay, so here the Skyclave Apparition. Again, I'm in a meta that's like heavy with decks that are dependent on the commanders. Skyclave is used to get rid of them. This might be something, if you're not in a situation that's similar to that, you can slip this out with something else. Slippery Bogbonder is kind of cool. When Slippery Bogbonder enters the battlefield, put a hexproof counter on target creature, then move any number of counters from among creatures you control onto that creature. So the cool thing is with this, you can kind of combo it with Yasharn. So like say Yasharn was at 3, but for some reason you would benefit from Yasharn if it was at a 2. Like say you needed to get Soulless Jailer or something. You can Slippery Bogbonder, throw, hexproof on one of your Stax pieces, and then move a couple of counters from Yasharn onto that other one, and then Yasharn's lower again, and you can start getting, something clutch that you need. Let's see here. Again, Solitude, it's more removal. Maybe your meta doesn't need as much removal as mine does, but this one's pretty good. And I believe that is a wrap on that deck. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little rundown on Yasharn. It's a fun deck. However, I'm going to do a follow-up video to upgrading Yasharn to something more competitive, because if you're building a competitive deck, you want your commander to be draw. So instead of Yasharn, I'm upgrading this deck to a different deck. It's going to be white and green and black, and I'll go over it in another video, but it essentially... by having draw in your command zone, you can take out cards like Orin Frostfang or Toski Bearer of Secrets and stuff, and you can put in stacks or tutors in place of them, which just tightens up the game and makes it better. So, and then again, sell or buy list everything. It's not alpha. All of the regular cards going down in price. Alpha will be going up in price. Proxy, proxy, proxy. And with that, I hope you guys enjoy the video and have a wonderful day.